Thank you all for joining today. We have a great turnout, so I'm super excited to get started with this conversation. All right, so as a reminder, before we get started, please select your language of choice. Pueden elegir el idioma que prefieran. You can listen in either English or Spanish. You'll see at the bottom of the screen, it will say interpretation. So there you can select your language of choice. En la pantalla abajo va a salir una opción para elegir el idioma que quieran, como un pequeño mundo ahí donde dice interpretación. Entonces ahí pueden elegir o español o inglés. So now once everybody is all set selecting their language, we can go ahead and get started. Welcome to Demystifying Robusta, a webinar hosted by the Chain Collaborative. We're so grateful to have these incredible panelists with us today, as well as all of these wonderful attendees. I'm Tessa Tracy, and I will be the moderator today. So the idea behind this webinar really bloomed organically. Our central program at the Chain Collaborative is our community-led development incubator. This is a program through which we partner with local leaders and coffee communities around the world and invest in their projects to lead change within their own communities. So one of those amazing leaders, Andrea Lopez, is with us as a panelist today. She is the leader of a Robusta producing coffee association in the Ecuadorian Amazon. And she shared with us a lot of the challenges and benefits of producing and selling Robusta. And she also challenged a lot of common myths you hear about Robusta's taste. So that is what inspired us to open up a broader conversation to a broader audience. So we have 4 incredible panelists with us today. I'll go ahead and introduce each of them. The discussion between the panelists will last about 40 minutes, and then we will open up the conversation to questions from the audience. So you will see also at the bottom of your Zoom screen a option to contribute a question in the Q&A. So if you would like to ask a question at any point in the webinar, please submit your question in the Q&A section, and then at the end of the 40-minute discussion, we'll have 15 minutes to present those questions to our panelists. So please do not hesitate. So here we'll go with the introductions. So first, as I mentioned, we're joined by Andrea Lopez. She is the head administrator of Aso Amazonas, a social enterprise in the Ecuadorian Amazon committed to rescuing the agricultural activities in the region and adding value to local products, especially Robusta coffee. They also reinvest in community livelihood and educational projects. She is a Q grader, a talented barista, and an expert in post-harvest, drying, and storage processes. She has a degree in finance from the Universidad San Francisco in Quito. Next, we're joined by Fabio Legarda. He is a roaster and Robusta coffee grower with Huitoca, which is the brand at Aso Amazonas. He holds a degree in hotel business administration from the Universidad San Francisco in Quito as well. Fabio is passionate about roasting and has received training from several local and international organizations. He's also participated in workshops on coffee quality, regenerative agriculture, and educational facilitation. He's currently pursuing a master's in coffee economics and science from a university in Italy. Fabio and Andrea are both talented and experienced young leaders who are creating change in their community through fine Robusta production. Our next panelist today is Linh Hoa. She is the founder and managing director at Seoul Roastery and Seoul Specialty Coffee in Vietnam. Vietnam is the world's largest Robusta exporter, and having grown up in the Central Highlands of the country, Linh is now leading a next generation of Robusta producers, roasters, and exporters. She's paved her own way researching the best methods for harvesting, processing, fermenting, drying, roasting, and brewing Robusta to create a delicious, high-quality product and empower producers through fair pricing. Now Seoul Coffee both exports fine Robusta and operates 4 successful coffee shops in-country, expanding the domestic market as well. Linh is passionate about Robusta achieving the recognition it deserves. And finally, we're joined by Federico Escalante, the founder and director of Foodie & Co., a specialty coffee roaster in Madrid, Spain, offering delicious Costa Rican coffees and revolutionizing the coffee capsule space with 100% compostable pods. Originally from Costa Rica, Federico has over 8 years of experience in the international coffee sector, building relationships with different stakeholders of the value chain of the European market. He's experienced in negotiation, logistics, and marketing. He also offers creative bean-to-cup experiences for clients and consumers to learn more about their products. Foodie & Co. runs coffee shops in Madrid while also offering their coffee wholesale online. Today, Federico will be sharing his experience, including fried Robusta, in their coffee offerings. So thank you all for being here today. Welcome to our incredible panelists. We're so excited to get started. And to begin, we're just going to begin with a little bit of context about Robusta. I know we'll have attendees with a range of experience. So we wanted to start asking you, Andrea, if you could provide a brief introduction to the Robusta species and what differentiates it from Arabica. You're on mute.
Gracias. Hola a todos, es un honor participar en este tan esperado webinar. Muchas gracias. La tecnología nos permite unirnos, así que es una gran fortuna también. Bien, ustedes conocen que en el mercado internacional Robusta es catalogado como el café de la peor calidad posible y básicamente como destinado a o expresos o café comercial soluble. Y hay varias razones para esto. Empezando desde que tenemos que decir o aclarar que se tratan de dos especies diferentes, una la arábiga, otra la robusta. Pertenecen a la misma familia, al mismo género, sin embargo, si queremos hacer una analogía, sería como tratar de relacionar mandarinas, por ejemplo, con naranjas. Son dos frutas totalmente distintas como especies, pero bastante similares también con características que comparten, que son similares. Por otro lado, arábiga agronómicamente fue descrita desde 1753, mientras que robusta desde 1895. Hay una brecha de al menos 142 años de, obviamente, investigación, desarrollo en cada una de las especies, y eso significa que a robusta le toca un poco igualar esta brecha y pues tiene un potencial enorme para demostrar lo que tiene, para ofrecer. Arábiga también se autopoliniza, tiene tetraploide, lo que significa que de alguna manera puede garantizar las mismas características de generación en generación, mientras que robusta se poliniza de forma cruzada, lo que más bien genera una diversidad genética increíble, súper diversa, y esto es positivo en varios aspectos, porque la diversidad también genera mejor adaptabilidad de generación en generación, y justamente a lo que enfrentamos como mundo, el cambio climático. Robusta de alguna forma es el futuro. No significa que no está en riesgo o que no va a ser afectado, pero sí que tiene posibilidades de mejor adaptabilidad y de podernos proporcionar y deleitar de cafés por muchos años. Por otro lado, en cuanto al perfil característico de taza, de sabor, cuando los robustas son obviamente bien tratados con procesos de altos estándares de calidad, pueden expresar notas frutales, notas ácidas, también que se cree que el robusta no tiene acidez. Nosotros tenemos el gusto de probar todos los días cafés con acidez media, con cuerpos súper intensos, cremosos, sabores afrutados, especiados, y de disfrutar pues de perfiles súper complejos que pueden deleitar a muchísimos pacientes. Si bien hay muchas diferencias, también hay muchas similitudes, y estamos convencidos y estamos haciendo, ¿no? Ya con esta experiencia que hemos recorrido, que el mundo, muchos países empiecen a probar estos robustos y se sorprendan y se enamoren de los robustos. Entonces, estamos convencidos de que hay muchísimo futuro en el robusto de especialidad y les invitamos a todos a conocer más y a probar.
Thank you. Thank you, Andrea. That was a perfect introduction. And yeah, we've always enjoyed listening to you speak about the flavor profiles of Robusta and really opening everyone's minds to the complexity of the species. So now we'd love to hear from you, Lynn, if you could share with us, knowing that Vietnam is the largest Robusta exporter in the world, if you could share with us a little bit about how quality has evolved in Vietnam and how it has moved from being a strictly commercial product into this high quality, fine, Robusta specialty product that you're producing nowadays. We'd love to hear from your perspective.
Hi everyone. Yeah. As you know, Vietnam becoming the world's second largest coffee exporter in terms of market share, just behind the Brazil. And in 2021, Vietnam ranked in the first coffee production with 2.4 tons per hectare. However, despite the impressive export figures, Vietnamese coffee still remain in 80% of export agriculture commodities with quality brand and branding to be able to fully participate in the global value chain. So it impacts to pricing of Vietnam coffee commodity. This is a disadvantage for Vietnamese coffee trend in general. The farmer just want to chop down the coffee tree to change the purpose of the coffee land. And to solve this problem, the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development in Vietnam, as well as in its province, had issued the technical procedures on the coffee cultivation, replanting and processing, and guide this body to avoid it's according to many certification around the world about the standards, depending on the actual condition is proven and to the appropriate procedure to apply. And the government has set to train to replan about 75,000 hectares nationwide to grab and to improve the around 32,000 hectares of the coffee, of which Robusta coffee accounts for about 80% of total areas. There are the new coffee corn with the highest from 2.4 tons to 7 tons of the green coffee per hectare. Good quality, big bean size, and over 65% of grade 1 and high resistance to leprosy. They have to increase the competitiveness of Vietnam coffee products on the world market. So in which they have the many clones of late ripening coffee, like for example TR9, TR11, TR13, and so on, in order to gradually change the time of the coffee harvest to the right dry season. This is not convenient for harvesting, but ensure the quality of the coffee is not damaged due to the rain during the dry in the process, and reduce the amount of aeration required in the dry season. So in line with the commitment, it's recommended to only harvest the ripe berries. Do not collect the green fruit. The harvesting must be done with the right technique, like not the plucking, not twisting, or breaking the branches. And freshly harvested coffee berry must meet the national standards in Vietnam. So in Vietnam, they are still developing the Vietnam specialty coffee in line with the processing of international economics integration, meeting the increased demand of specialty coffee in post and in domestic market too, while improving at the value and competitiveness of Vietnam coffee products on the world markets. It contributes to the sustainable development of Vietnam coffee industry. Therefore, in recent years, Robusta specialty coffee in Vietnam has appeared more and more at international coffee fair, for example, in US, in Italy, Japan, Korea, and so on. And it's highly appreciated by the roaster and importers. They are really interested to connecting, and Vietnam start to have a large import shipment for specialty coffee. They are optimistic the signal on the long way to improving the reputation and the value of Vietnamese coffee bean until now. Yeah.
Thank you, Lynn. Yeah, I think that provides a really interesting history, and part of the reason why we wanted to include both the Vietnamese perspective and the Ecuadorian perspective is because this is kind of what Aso Amazonas is trying to move forward in their own community. So Fabio, next we were hoping that you could provide a little bit of information on the primary challenges that you've encountered with producing and selling fine Robusta, both locally and internationally. We know that for many people, the concept of fine Robusta is fairly new, and it's been historically associated with lower quality products. So we're curious to kind of hear from you what the challenges you've encountered have been.
Gracias, Tessa, por supuesto. Uno de los principales desafíos que tenemos cuando se quiere comercializar café robusta es que primero hay un estigma en el mercado que ya está bastante aceptado, que el café robusta es de baja calidad. Entonces, romper esas barreras requiere tiempo, y a nosotros ha requerido bastante tiempo. Y la otra está en que los medios en que se produce el café son, aquí en la Amazonía de Ecuador, son generalmente zonas con bastantes problemas de infraestructura. No contamos con la infraestructura adecuada, entonces toca empezar todo de cero. Todos sabemos que para hacer café de especialidad se necesitan cosas básicas como un buen secador, respetar los tiempos de fermentación, tener conocimiento de secado, tener diferentes tipos de conocimiento que se van juntando para obtener un café de altísima calidad. Entonces, para nosotros, cuando empezamos a entender que el café tiene un potencial incluso superior a los arábigas, nos dimos cuenta que es sobre tiempo, que empezamos a tener esa gente que empezó a creer en este tipo de sabor, porque el consumidor final, si uno no le dice este es robusta o arábiga, difícilmente va a diferenciar. Es más los compradores, es más los baristas que están en la industria, en la cadena de suministro del café, quienes ponen barreras, pero también es cuestión de la gente que empieza a desarrollar este tipo de café. Como Andrea ha dicho anteriormente, el café robusta es el futuro, dado el cambio climático, pero también se abre esta oportunidad para otro tipo de mercado. Entonces, hay muchos desafíos. Nosotros estamos en un ecosistema súper frágil. La Amazonía de Ecuador es uno de los ecosistemas más diversos del mundo en el que se produce café. Entonces, no nos podemos dar el lujo de producir cantidades, sino que tenemos que enfocarnos en producir calidad. Y la gente que está en la comunidad produciendo el café tiene muchas dificultades con los accesos a medios de comunicación, las vías, electricidad, cosas básicas que necesita toda persona no están cubiertas. Entonces, ponerse a producir calidad con todas esas condiciones es realmente un reto.
Thank you so much, Fabio. I think this is kind of the perfect transition into turning to you, Federico, because we know not many specialty coffee roasters are open to working with Robusta, and as Fabio's expressed, that's often a challenge they encounter. So we're curious to hear from you, what made you pay attention to this species and decide to include it in your offerings?
Well, thank you for the invite and for being here. First of all, my background. I'm usually people who works in coffee. They have been working with coffee for generations. It's a business that it's very from father to son, and it's a very traditional way. My background, I come from fast-moving consumer goods, so it has nothing to do with agriculture and with the farms and everything. That said, we focus, or my background focuses a lot in marketing, insights, and consumer behavior. And as As you guys were saying, the perception of Robusta, not fine Robusta, it's not very well perceived in general in terms of quality. The thing is, that said, in the European market, that it's the place that we actually we're currently working in, the taste or the history of what people drink here, it's mainly a mix between Robusta and Arabica. And why? Because in general, in Italy, in Austria, in Germany, in Spain, in France, they love la crema, el café crema, that it's the foam that the coffee gives. And mostly la crema comes from Robusta. Robusta adds a lot of crema and body. The thing is, when we started in terms of what we offer to the consumers, we thought that we really wanted to separate and to let the consumer understand the differences between the products. And this is why we started exploring not only different farms, but different origins. And we encountered with a fine Robusta from India that, as Andrea was telling at the beginning, has a complexity of citric and fruity and spicy flavors. So it's a very complex coffee that works very well with our product offer. We offer experiences, we're foodie, and our name explains a little bit about what we want to express to the consumers. If you go to a coffee shop, or if you're a hotel that wants to buy the coffee from us, you're expected to receive experiences, taste, to innovation, or to have your mind blown away in terms of flavors, in terms of quality. So that's why we started exploring, and mainly when you see it, it's kind of contradicting that Fabio said that the buyers are the ones who put a little bit of barriers in terms of the Robusta coming into the market. But the thing is, in Europe especially, it's always been like a mix. In Spain, it's 70% Robusta, 30% Arabica. In Italy, it's more 50-50 or even more Robusta. So I think that the channels are open, but probably there's a lot of history to talk about. And the consumer, I think it's ready. And it is, for sure, it's been said to the consumer that Robusta is not as high quality as Arabica, or is not as complex, but it's been proven that it's not. And it's something that when you taste it, it's very obvious. You don't have to discuss a lot more. It's right there in your face. And currently, right now, our strategy is to offer the broadest variety of experiences to our consumers through the coffee shops and hotels, and Fine Robusta is a key player in offering something that nobody else is offering right now in the market.
Wonderful. Thank you, Federico. I think that's a really important perspective, and also kind of gives a lot of hope, you know, that a lot of people already are drinking Robusta and enjoy it for what it is. So that's wonderful response. Thank you. So our next question is for you, Lynn. We're curious. So you've been growing your business for a long time now, and we're curious about what would be the key lessons that you've learned that you would share with somebody else who's looking to grow their own fine Robusta business.
Yes, we have started so specialty coffee in Vietnam. We focused on fine Robusta for 5 years ago, and until that moment, we are trying to adapt our missions, which so I will represent the soul of the children from the Buôn Ma Thuột city. Buôn Ma Thuột is the coffee capital of Vietnam, where the coffee culture is evident and the life is vibrant with the Highland culture heritage. So the human actual they have a childhood that's spent in the coffee farm, and among the coffee farm, not just the pursuits, but embrace the commitment to successor generation What can we do to do justice to Robusta beans and thus spread the respect and reconnection that Robusta deserves? With that, is that the foundation for sure to explore the creative product thriving to adapt to the fine Robusta with traditional and local sources. Moreover, we believe that training is very important to equip the knowledge and skills in pot harvest processing, including the processing green coffee beans and roasting and brewing. They are very important insights and practice to for create a high quality coffee with fine Robusta that are often overlooked in conventional commercial coffee production and processing. We aim for the efficient, sustainable production that always deliver the high quality to specialty coffee to the market. And this orientation with many strategic solutions ranging from farm to like marketing trades or the coffee to the customer. So at the planning of the coffee production, to adopt a sustainable coffee production engineering process, diversifying the processing promoting trades and export in parallels to put coffee consumption in domestic market, with strong branding. We are also making effort to apply international standards in production and processing at the same time to develop the national standards in harmony with the international standards. This is the restructuring of the center task of the coffee industry in the context of intensive integration into the international economy. The mentioned industry challenge set the premise to commitment with the fine Robusta as we do until the moment. Our debate 26 answer on how to fighting the process, balancing the traditional and the culture persistent and creative the innovation, all while improving the crop and supply capacity. So actually reflect our vision and commitment to properly position Vietnam fine Robusta products in global value chains.
Thank you, Lynn, for that thoughtful response. I want to remind all of our attendees that our Q&A section is open. So if you have any questions arising as you're listening to our speakers, and or anything you want them to follow up on in our question and answer section, please don't hesitate. You'll find in the bottom menu on your Zoom screen the Q&A, and there you can submit your questions and we'll circle back to them once we finish our planned discussion in a few minutes. So our next question is, well, really, we're going to sort of shift the conversation a little bit more towards the benefits. We've dove into some of the challenges around producing and selling Robusta, but now we want to discuss some of the benefits. So our next question is for Andrea. We would love to hear if you could share from the perspective of a social enterprise so committed to your community, what are some of the benefits that are seen on a community level when people decide to buy Robusta? We actually can't hear you.
Espérate un segundo. Ahí está. Dale.
Bien.
Habla más fuerte.
Escuchamos a Flavia, pero...
Sí.
Hola. ¿Me escuchan ahora? Ok. Lo que decía es que de pronto vamos a resumir una palabra clave del tema de cuáles son los beneficios para la comunidad. Perdón, ahora sí.
Ahora sí.
Ok, ok. Bueno, para nosotros es una palabra clave detrás de todos los beneficios que significa empoderamiento. Es una palabra súper poderosa que viene a traducir lo que hemos visto en estos años de experiencia de trabajar con robustos finos y básicamente empoderamiento a nivel de la comunidad, de los niños, de los productores, incluso de los consumidores locales, ¿no? Ya que el producir un producto de calidad significa poner en práctica ciertos estándares, ciertos protocolos y cierta tecnología que antes no había en el Robusta comercial, ¿no? Al que se dedicaron nuestros abuelos, nuestros padres. Y esto va a varios niveles, desde lo económico, porque nos permite tener márgenes de utilidad que nunca se vieron, siempre ha sido sobrevivir del café, y lo que apostamos nosotros es por vidas dignas para los productores, y esto solo lo podemos conseguir con eh, la producción de café de especialidad, no el café netamente de volumen, no el café comercial, sino un café con técnica, con amor, que no solo impacta a los productores como tal, que también aquí están catalogados como productores élite, porque son gente que le dedica manejo a sus cafetales, que cosecha el grano en óptima maduración y que está pendiente de cuidar el suelo, porque no solo es aprovechar lo que tenemos de la naturaleza, sino también que hay una vida en el suelo que tenemos que cuidar para que también nos cuide a nosotros como productores. Entonces, todas las prácticas que hacemos son orgánicas, porque nos importa el futuro también, no solo el aprovechar ahora. Y en este sentido, como comunidad, también hemos destinado esfuerzos importantes a las nuevas generaciones. Tenemos un club de lectura con algunos niños de la comunidad que básicamente son hijos de productores, y que vemos el cambio con estos niños donde empiezan a ver que sus papás cosechan o manejan calidad porque están cosechando rojito, en sus palabras, ¿no? Y porque ellos pueden ver que sus hermanos, que sus padres están desempeñando otras actividades a lo largo de la cadena de valor del café, como baristas, como tostadores, como catadores. Entonces no es como tradicionalmente el café, como ellos dicen, se cosechaba y se subía al camión y se iba y no se sabía qué pasaba con él, sino que ahora tenemos la posibilidad hemos implementado hace un par de años una cafetería, que es la primera cafetería en una comunidad rural de productores, y es una cafetería de especialidad, centrada en los robustas. Entonces, es un impacto en varias dimensiones, donde tanto jóvenes como adultos ven otra dinámica alrededor del café, y hay esperanza, hay futuro, y eso empodera totalmente a la comunidad. Entonces, estamos muy complacidos de lo que estamos haciendo, le vemos mucho futuro al Robusta, y sabemos que nos permitirá seguir profesionalizándonos, seguirnos preparando, y añoramos, o sea, agradecemos mucho tener esta variedad con nosotros, ¿no? Esta especie con nosotros.
Thank you, Andrea. Yeah, that was a beautiful answer. I love the idea of thinking through the benefits of Robusta, not just for the producers who you're paying fairly and who are being empowered through your work, but also the sustainability for the community, for the environment, and then also the work that you do with youth. So thank you. Wonderful. Great. Well, Federico, in your last answer, you began to touch a little bit on how about the experiences you provide for your consumers, and we were hoping that you could share a little bit more with us about the creative strategies that you've used for introducing specifically fine Robusta to your customers as a way to introduce them to specialty coffee.
Yeah, well, as we mentioned before, Robusta has been available in the European markets for a long time. The difference between 90, 87, 88 points coffee, Arabica coffee, it's that the level of complexity in terms of acidity, in terms of flavors, it's very complex. And as people continue to move from products that that are more basic, or the blends that are basic and are not that complex, it's a huge step to go from one point to the other one just overnight. So you have to work around it, and you have to. I have an example like cars, like in Mercedes or BMW, or like in whiskey, that you have the same brand, but you have for example, in whiskey, you have the red label. So when you're 18 or 19 and you're in college, you start drinking probably whiskey, you will start with a red label. But as soon as you can progress in terms of your consumption, you keep moving, or that's what's supposed to happen. You keep moving on to brighter and better things. So in terms for consumers, to really, and when I mean consumers, I mean the mass, not the specialists, the baristas, the very specialized people, but just people that go and buy a coffee. So for them to actually move up in terms of quality, in terms of, because those are the ones that are going to ask the producers to give them something better. If the consumer is not asking for that, that's not going to happen. So for us, that's the key component of the fine Robusta. Gives you a higher quality, a better experience, without being so different or so complex that they do not understand it or get it. So we developed what we call consumption occasions. Like, for example, our fine Robusta for India, it's a awake and dreaming, despierto y soñando. So it's a coffee that has a lot of body. Crema goes good with milk. So it's good without milk. It has a little bit of acidity. It's a very round coffee, and it's perfect for the morning, very aromatic. So that gives you the sense of a complete experience for the first coffee in the morning. We also developed the fine dining and friends, and when we have that, it's a coffee that it's after lunch. And we have the coffee that you take like 5 or 7 coffees a day, that it's the coffee lover and proud. And that's why we've making different strategies in terms of how to communicate very clearly to the consumer why should they expect, and not be that technical in terms of the product, because not everybody it's like an expert in those senses. So for us, basically, what allows us to keep on moving or pushing or offering the mass, not the high end or the barista, the specialty, but the people that they have available a great quality of coffee, and they don't know, and they need that it's that they can relate, and that it's easy to understand. And that's why we started with consumption occasions, and also why we are roasts, and we are not a typical specialty coffee roaster or specialty coffee shop, because we believe that you need to have a path to start and develop and then bloom, and then all these great things that the producers are working are going to be really appreciated and understood, and they're going to adopt changes in their behavior and consumption in order for us to have a best quality chain in the coffee business. So that's, in a summary, what we've been trying to very focus on consumers, develop a strategy that it's much more easy to understand and to adapt and adopt.
Thank you, Federico. Yeah, I love all of the creative approaches that you guys have taken, and I'm sure they can be inspiring to others who are thinking about including Robusta in their offerings. So thank you. And we just have one last planned question before we get into our Q&A. I'm excited to see so many questions coming in. So our last question before we move on to that section is for Lynn. If you could provide, from your perspective as a roaster, and also as a retail business owner, what are the qualities that you like most about fine Robusta, and why would you recommend that other roasters include this species in their offerings?
At introduction, you talk about that. At before that, I have the 4 coffee shops that retails in Vietnam. We do it because we want to show to the customer how the fine Robusta is. 5 years ago, customer haven't respect and no one know about the Robusta. How is it good? How is the Robusta can present itself to the customer? How the quality? So we study. We have a challenge. We go around the world. We know that Robusta really different with another coffee like Arabica or Liberica, and the Robusta. The good Robusta, the fine Robusta have to all the like to control and follow all the process from the pot harvest, such as the cultivating, the baking, the processing, storage, roasting, and brewing. So every step is very important to enhance the quality and delivery the excellent product to the customer. So to talk about the more about fine Robusta, the quality about that. I think Robusta have a different flavor, but they have a really good body, and they have a really long aftertaste and really different with another coffee. So I think by another way that Robusta have a different point, different kind, different taste with another coffee. So we need to work all the process from the beginning until at the end of the Robusta that we can sell to the customer. And I always recommend to these spices in for the offering to the another roaster because they can bring another perspective to the customer to that bring to like customer experience. It's really different. So how you serve to the customer, what different? Because we like we talked before that we in Vietnam we almost have a Robusta. We don't have a lot of Arabica, and we need to improve the market. Need to know about that Robusta is really good and different with another one. So yeah, I always offer that the roasters can have the good Robusta that bring to the new customer experience.
Thank you, Lynn. Yeah, I think that was a great response, and it actually touches on some of the questions that we've been getting in the Q&A about, you know, what is Robusta supposed to taste like, and yeah, just really great. So, well, we have a bunch of questions in the Q&A. Before we get into that, I just want to remind everybody that you can follow our panelists on Instagram and keep up with their work, because I have a feeling we're not going to get through all of these amazing questions today, but please do follow them, connect with them, stay connected to TCC, and hopefully if we don't answer your question today, we can get back to it at another time. So the first question I would like to address, and this is I'm choosing based on what I think maybe we haven't touched on as much. Any of our three panelists, I think, would be able to answer this. From an anonymous attendee asked us, what advice and suggestions would you give to an Arabica coffee roaster to help them understand how to approach roasting Robusta? If they've never roasted Robusta before, what are some of the things you would recommend that they keep in mind? And any of you are welcome to answer.
Well, I would say, Tessa, just to start and give the other guys a little bit of time, but I would say that it's not as different in terms of roasting. So you have a different experience. The different experience that you get from a Robusta, different than the experience that you get from Arabica. In terms of roasting and if today is that you have a lot of recipes saved and available from producers and from other roasters. So you can start with that, but besides that, you can And part of the fun part of coffee, that it's roasting coffee, it's like cooking. So if you like your steak raw, you're probably not gonna roast too much your coffee either. So in those terms, I would say that if you need a base, you can use whatever is available in terms of the internet and digital world and roaster machines that give you guidelines. And after that, just to experiment.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Federico. I think I will direct our next question to Andrea, and then the next question to Lynn, just to kind of spread everything out. Andrea, we have a question from Camilo Munoz, who asked us that if you think that, well, I'm actually just going to ask in Spanish. I'll read the question as it was written. ¿Creen que tal vez el mismo nombre Robusta para dominar este café y no llamarlo por sus variedades ha afectado la comercialización de este café? Para así poder hablar de café fino y llamarlo como arábica por sus variedades. El estigma cuando se escucha Robusta es muy grande.
O sea, creo que definitivamente sí hay un estigma ahí y la palabra robusta afecta, y justo ese ha sido el reto de cómo, o sea, que nos va a costar o que nos está costando un montón de esfuerzo de cómo le marketeamos de otra forma o cómo le damos un aspecto a una imagen más bien positiva, robusta, y hemos visto estrategias de otros, en otros mercados, ¿no? De que le llaman canéfora, y nos parece interesante, tal vez como estrategia usar el canéfora para afuera, pero dentro del país tal vez la lucha es con el mismo robusta, pero hay una gran diferencia o un gran poder en el tema amazónico. Entonces hablamos aquí de robusta amazónico. También nos causa cierto conflicto este juego de palabras en Europa, por ejemplo, donde se asocia mucho café amazónico con la idea de Brasil, donde la producción es totalmente distinta, ¿no? Y más bien pone en riesgo ciertas áreas o muchas áreas de Amazonía. Entonces, creemos que la palabra robusta en sí, pues ya tiene todo este estigma y justo es parte del reto o la razón de por qué es tan difícil mostrar, conquistar, ¿no? más paladares por la idea ya preconcebida de robusta. Sin embargo, cuando hablamos de más bien usar como variedades para referirnos a, justo tenemos también otro reto que es la gran diversidad, ¿no? Entonces hay muchos productores que no saben bien cuáles son sus variedades, que hay variedades de napos payaminos, que son la mayor parte de cultivos que tenemos acá, pero muchos son híbridos y mezclas que no vamos a poder definir exactamente. Entonces, es un reto. Nosotros hemos decidido tomar la bandera de lo amazónico y para afuera tal vez empezar a hablar de canéforas, porque también es una diferenciación con comilones incluso, que es otras características, y lo que tenemos para ofrecer es otras características. Nada, entonces sí, hay un reto enorme, pero nos vamos a ir con el tema de robusta amazónico por ahora y afuera tal vez con canéfora. Eso hemos tenido experimentado.
Thank you, Andrea. Yeah, I think that's a great question and a great answer. It was interesting. Heard you guys talk a lot about having to learn about Robusta through the research that exists around Arabica, and then based on what you experience, find out what applies and what doesn't. So really great question and an interesting answer. So our next question is for Lynn, from an anonymous attendee. They asked, what is Sol Specialty Coffee doing for changing the customer behavior of drinking dark roast, additives blend Robusta bean, perhaps usually low quality? Because it might be the typical coffee definition for the majority of coffee drinkers in Vietnam, as it was listed as part of the Vietnamese coffee culture.
Thank you for the question. Yeah, at the growing country, the growing coffee country with many coffee producers, in Vietnam, we had a coffee culture that they ran for many years ago. and yeah, it affects you the quality, the way of the customer to drink the coffee. So it really had to change the mind for the customer, that they know how to like the true Robusta and how we drink the coffee. So as I mentioned before, that we always try to relate the traditional to renovation the coffee, that we didn't change, that we blend anything, or we try to put something in the coffee for the customer. We make the clean coffee. However, we use the techniques approach that nearly with the traditional, the old one, that they mix something in the coffee. We didn't make that, but we wrote the techniques that it a little bit like they can feel and easy to the traditional one. In Vietnam, they didn't drink with high acidity or something like that, because they drink with condensed milk. But I think that we go to the market. I think that the right time, that the many company, many brand of the coffee, especially coffee, came to Vietnam. They introduced to the new way, the new coffee, the new coffee wave to the customer, that we haven't changed to introduce that Robusta Vietnam. The Vietnamese coffee can do the new thing that adapt the quality, international quality, and they can drink the true Robusta. How is it? And yes, I have like the retail, the coffee shop, that we try to talk with the customer, how the Vietnamese coffee is, and very lucky that they accepted, and now other people really like the new way of the Robusta, the fried Robusta in Vietnam. Yeah.
Thank you, Lynn. Yeah, I think that's a great question, and it relates back to kind of what Federico was sharing as well about the European consumer audience. So it's really kind of interesting parallel there. So thank you both. I think we maybe have time for one more question. It's so hard to pick because all of these questions are wonderful, but we haven't spoken much about brewing Robusta yet. So I would, well, Federico has shared a bit about how they brew and present Robusta, but Bhavi Patel asked, how would you recommend brewing a Robusta, and how is it different from brewing an Arabica? So I think this could be interesting from also the perspective of those of us who plan to drink it at home. If you have any tips for how we might brew it differently than we brew our Arabicas, or if it's the exact same, just a different taste.
En general. Perdón. Bueno, yo puedo contestar esta pregunta. Pues nosotros hemos venido experimentando en cuanto a extracciones. Utilizamos la B60, los tiempos de extracción son cortos, estamos hablando de una infusión de 40 segundos, una preinfusión de 40 segundos y luego extraemos el café en 2 minutos y medio. Cuando estamos hablando de café B60, una técnica de B60. Entonces, hacemos una preinfusión y luego vamos agregando el agua violentamente. Queremos que se extraiga lo más rápido posible, porque si entre más tiempo dejamos el café extraerse, se extrae mayor cantidad de cafeína y otros componentes que tienden a ser amargos. Entonces queremos extraerlo a unas temperaturas de 92 grados. Eso depende del lugar donde uno se encuentre, pero estamos hablando de temperaturas de 92 grados o un poquito más baja la temperatura para que se resalte la acidez, que es lo que buscamos. Y de hecho el café Robusta tiene una acidez bastante delicada, entonces muy, muy bueno para el estómago. Mucha gente dice, mi café no me gusta porque tiene mucha acidez. Pero el caso del canéfora es muy agradable.
Thank you, Fabio. Yeah, it's a great answer. I think we should probably go ahead and wrap up because I just want to take a minute to thank our 4 wonderful panelists today for taking the time to teach us from your experience and what you know. So we really, really appreciate it. And for our attendees, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to join today and learn a bit about Robusta. Again, I encourage you to follow our panelists on Instagram. You can find them linked on the Chain Collaborative's Instagram. And we're keeping track of all of these other questions that we did not get a chance to answer. I'll share them with our panelists, and maybe we can feature some more information on our social media in the coming weeks. So thank you all so much for your time, and please stay in touch. Thank you.
Gracias. Hasta pronto.
Thank you for today.